Hi, this is Rick from Edwardo Software, and this video is part of the training series for PokerOdds Calculator Pro. And in this video, I'm going to talk about the draw breakdowns, draw stats, in other words. So here we're on the hand list screen, so let's just start a fresh new hand, hitting the plus button here. And let's figure out the draw stats for 7-8 of hearts and against pocket tens. So what does that mean is basically I want to figure out the draw statistics, like how often he has a straight draw, flush draw, a pair and a flush draw, stuff like that. So you can calculate odds here, and then you can dive down to see the detail stats. But if you notice, if you swipe between the stats, I only have the equity heat chart and the hand rake breakdown. I only have two stats. So where is it at? Well, the catch is the only way to actually see draw breakdown stats is if you calculate to flop. So in order to do that, you have to hit this button down here to change it to calculate to flop, and then hit calculate. And what this does, it does two things. First, the major thing it does is it stops the calculation engine at the flop, so these equities here only show flop statistics. It doesn't take into account future turn and river cards. And there's another video available in this training series that talk about all the other modes: calculate to pre-flop, calculate to river, calculate to turn, and then calculate to flop. But I'm not going to dive into details about that here, but just keep in mind that when you calculate to flop, these equities show equities on the flop only without regard to future turn and river cards. So it's not what you typically see. However, with calculate to flop, when you hit the player details, in addition to the hand rake breakdown and the equity heat chart, the middle stat shows you the draws breakdown, which wasn't available before. So now you can see all the possible draws for the 7-8 of hearts. So here we have the breakdown of 4 flushes, straight draw, open and a straight flush draw, 4 flush and a straight draw. That's like a combo draw. Pair and 4 flush, another combo draw. Pair and a straight draw, that's another combo draw. So it shows you all the basic draws, and the top row, 31.4%, means 31.4% he's going to flop some type of draw, whether it's a flush draw or a straight draw. Some type of draw he'll flop 31.4%. And here's the breakdown of the stats. Now also you might notice, unlike the hand rake breakdown, which is over here, where all these rows down here always total sum up to the top row. So see these number here, they always sum up to 100% here, because this is the total of whatever is below it. And the draw breakdown, that's not true. These actually sum up are higher than 31.4%, because in the draws breakdown, some of these actually overlap. Like the straight draw overlaps with 4 flush and straight draw and so forth. That's just something to keep in mind if you're a little confused on the numbers. So let's look at the straight draw. Now, what does the 24.2% here mean? Well, that means he's going to end up with some type of straight draw 24.2% of the time. But you might be wondering, well, I don't really care about any type of straight draw. I want to care about open-ended straight draws. I don't even want to focus on the gut straight draws. So you actually can touch these to actually dive in. So let's touch this row. And now it actually breaks down all the types of draws you have, all the types of straight draws, from open-ended straight draw, gut straight, and even the double gut straight draws. So here it shows 8.3% of the time I'm going to have a really good straight draw, while 16.1% of the time I'm going to have a lousy gut draw, which might be good depending on the situation. And if you want to dive in detail to actually see what end of the open-ended straight draw you're on, you actually click here. And now it actually shows you the breakdown of all the open-ended straights from 10, 9, 8, 7. That's when you're on the dummy end of the straight draw. 9, 8, 7, 6 and 8, 7, 6, 5, which is when you're on the good side of the straight draw. So that's actually pretty powerful. And you can actually look at the double gut, and it shows you the Jack 9, 8, 7, 5 and the 10, 8, 7, 6, 4. There's only two possible double guts actually hit on the flop. And these happen rarely, but they're actually pretty good draws. And also, you can look at four flushes. So 9.9% of the time, he's going to flop a four flush, which is two hearts. And that actually, let's say that excludes when he actually flops a flush. So the hands where he flops a flush, which just happens very rarely, those aren't included in the four flush because he already had the flush. He's no longer on the flush draw when he flops a flush. So the four flush 9.9% only includes when two hearts comes with a non-heart. So two hearts in a club, two hearts in a spade, two hearts in a diamond. One of those. That's what the four flush includes here. So you actually can click on that, and it'll dive down to what four flushes he could possibly flop. So he'll actually flop a four flush, small four flush, or 8 high four flush 2.2% of the time. So that's actually really good. That means two small hearts came, like a 3 and a 2, while the ace high flush draw will flop 2.0% of the time, and so forth. All these break down here. And you can actually dive in to see the four flush and straight draw. That's a combo draw. And it shows you four flush and open-ended, four flush and gut, four flush and double gut. You can dive down further, and now it shows you the breakdown of the open-ended with the four flush. Just more statistics, more diving down feature. Sometimes the diving down isn't as useful. Sometimes it's useful. Like, for example, the open-ended straight draw is actually very useful. This one here, the one in the middle here, this is open-ended straight flush draw. So this just includes straight flush draws that are open-ended. It doesn't include straight flush draws. I don't include those because they're so hard to hit and they're so rare. So I just end up just chopping it off the table to simplify a little bit. And other combo draws, a pair and a four flush. Let's click there. Now you can see the breakdown of all the pairs and four flushes. And let's pinch. We can always pinch these type of charts to see what stands out. You can see that the pair of 8s with a four flush and a pair of 7s and a four flush stands out here, and that makes sense because he has an 8 and a 7. If he had let's say this one, for example, the kings and the four flush means there was like a king of heart, queen of heart, and another king, so a pair on the board. It's a king four flush. So that's not as useful. So the pair and four flush was 3.1%, but the actual more valuable pair and four flushes is here, the 8-8 four flush, 7-7 four flush. So those are actually more useful and better numbers to look at. So 1.5% of the time, he's going to have a pair of 8s, a four flush with pairing one of his cards right here. And you can actually dive down, detail even more, and you can see the pair and what type of four flush he has. Like, let's look at the king. I bet you it's at least a king four flush. Yeah, so it's king with a king four flush, or king with an ace four flush. That's what I talked about earlier. Let's go to the other player. This is the 10-10. You can see here, the only way you can have a pair and a four flush is with basically having the pair of 10s in a four flush. That means a club came, or a heart came. That's the only way you can have a four flush. And let's look at the straight draws. Notice that there's no way to have a double gutter. That's because he has a pair. There's no way to have a double gutter if you have a flop with double gutter if you have a pair. And look at the open and straight draws. And they're all deals with a 10. King, queen, jack 10, king, queen, 10, 9, and so forth. So actually, this one is probably useful, but this draw is really bad. The king, queen, jack 10, open and straight draw. And let's do another example. You can actually do this with just one player. And let's do a hand range. Yeah, we haven't done a hand range in a while. So let's do a hand range of suited connectors. And actually there's a built-in hand range for that. Let's scroll down to the suited connectors. There we go, suited connectors. There. And let's look at that just to see exactly what that is. Well, that's the ace king suited through the 3-2 suited. So 8-bit suited connectors, just what it said. All right. So let's calculate the to flop there. And the 100% doesn't really give you any information. I'm just playing against myself. However, if you click in the details, now you can actually see information about what a suited connector will flop draw wise. And let's go back real quick. Is this exact odds? No, they're simulated. All right. So here you can actually see the straight draw is pretty high, 22.2% of the time. That's because he has suited connectors. And the 4 flush is pretty high, 11% of the time, because he has suited connectors. So it's kind of, let's compare that to a totally random hand. Keep those numbers in mind. Let's just clear these, calculate. So suited connectors compared to a totally random hand. See how the 4 flush dropped from about 11% down to 4.3%, and the straight draws dropped from 20% down to 13.2%. And let's actually go back. Let's do a specific range where it's just connectors. Let's do connectors in the middle of the range, like Jack 10 through 7, 6. Let's also Jack 10 suited through 7, 6 suited. Let's just do that, see what we can find some interesting stats here. Let's go to the draws. So the straight draws is pretty high, the 26.5%. And notice that number actually went up from before, from 20% or 22% roughly, to now it's up to 26.5%. That's weird, because we had suited connectors before. Well, that's because we're in the meat of the range, basically in the middle, where you have more chances of having straight draws, because 10-9 has more chances of having a straight draw than, let's say, a 2-3 or a ace-deuce. So let's hit the straight draw here. Let's look at the open-ended straights. So now we can actually see our cards are actually the meat of it. Let's you can kind of see how it's like almost like a bell curve here. That's interesting. That's because the range is actually right in the middle. So these hit the top of the range is Jack 10. So these hit Jack 10 0.6% of the time, King, Queen, Jack 10. However, these draws happen a lot more often because I have more hands that actually overlap with these. I have Jack 10, 9, 8. Both Jack 10, 10, 9, and 9, 8 are all in my range. So it's more likely to actually hit the draws right in the meat of the range. Let's actually go back, do one more example, and I'll wrap it up. Let's actually do a range here, but let's actually fill in some cards. Let's actually fill in 10 Jack and like a deuce. What would that give us? So we're in that same range before, but now if you go to draw stats, I only have a possibility of having a straight draw here because the board is rainbow, so there's no flush draw possibilities. And so with my range, the only chances are actually having straight draw is Jack 10, 9, 8, and a gut draw of Jack 10, 8, 7. So when do you actually hit the Jack 10, 9, 8? Well, the Jack 10's on the board, so you had to have a 9, 8 in the hole. So and actually 9, 8 is 23.2% of the hand range is 9, 8. And Jack 10 here, and with the 8, 7, meaning I have to have 8, 7 in the hole. So that shows you that 8, 7 happens 23.2% of my hand range is 8, 7 because my hand range is so restrictive and so tight there. So that's just kind of interesting. I gotta do a better example here, and then I'll call it a day. Let's do like a king, king, king with 2 random players here. And now let's look at the draws. 4-card draw. There's no possibility of having a draw, and that makes sense because the board is king, king, king. So there's no way to actually have a draw. There you have it. That's the basics of the draw breakdown stats. And again, it's only available for Calculate to Flop. If you have any other questions, email me at support@edwardle.com or visit the website edwardle.com, and also check out the other training videos for this app, PokerOdds Calculator Pro. Thank you.